Christ. Well, Colbert was never really a stand-up, so I mean, I guess he has that.
No, but I mean,
but he was a comic when the Colbert Report was on. I mean, that was hilarious.
It was really good.
He was great.
Yeah,
he was great, and that show was a great takeoff of a pompous, ridiculous Republican.
Exactly.
I mean, it was really good. And then when you see this, you're like, wait a minute, what are you doing?
Imagine the scene. Joe Rogan, the podcasting titan with a microphone and a mission, and Megyn Kelly, the journalistic firebrand who takes no prisoners, both zeroing in on Stephen Colbert's neck in the same week. This isn't a minor PR hiccup, it's a full-blown career demolition derby. Colbert, once the untouchable king of satire, sauntered into this ambush like he was taping a fluffy segment with a Muppet. He thought he was still running a comedy show, but this week he's the punchline, roasted to a crisp by two media heavyweights who smell blood. Rogan's lighting the fuse with his raw, unfiltered takes, while Kelly's tossing gasoline with her surgical precision.
This on Stephen Colbert last night was next level. He's so gross. So gross. I remember the Stephen Colbert who tried to just make us laugh, who is like kind of fun, and who, while we always knew he was leftist, didn't realize he hated.
Social media, especially X, is a wildfire, with hashtags like Colbert cringe trending harder than any of his carefully scripted monologues. The man's identity crisis is now a spectator sport, and the stands are packed. So, what did Colbert say to ignite this inferno? It's not one soundbite, but a slow-burning fuse of disappointment. The text you provided points to a recent episode where his audience booed a CNN guest's claim of objectivity, exposing Colbert's show as a partisan echo chamber. Beyond that, Rogan and Kelly are torching him for a broader betrayal. His slide from razor-sharp satirist to sanctimonious cheerleader for the progressive elite. Ex-users like Mazemore have resurfaced old clips, like his 2021 vaccine dance, to argue he's been selling out for years. Social media is melting because it's not just about one bad week. It's about a decade of Colbert trading wit for applause, turning his show into a safe space for coastal liberals. The fire's been smoldering, but this week it's a 5-alarm blaze, with Rogan and Kelly fanning the flames. Rewind to the early 2000s. Stephen Colbert was a comedic genius on the Colbert Report, playing a bumbling Bill O'Reilly-esque conservative with such brilliance that both sides laughed. His parody sliced through political hypocrisy like a hot knife through butter. But somewhere along the way, he ditched the character and became the very thing he mocked, a preachy, self-righteous pundit masquerading as a comedian. The text nails it. This isn't growth, it's a plot twist with a laugh track nobody ordered. On The Late Show, he swapped savage satire for smug sermons, pandering to an audience that claps for ideology, not humor. X-posts from users like Scott Bertram lament the loss of the old Colbert, who roasted power, not flattered it. The sellout's complete, and the receipts are everywhere.
That with Colbert's audience?
No.
CNN is a joke to people in the audience. Watch this.
He knew his attack lines on President Biden, and he's not really sure how to go after Vice President Harris, 20 years younger than him, who is a different gender, a different race.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is.
That's supposed to be a lab line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is.
The audience is like, shut the
The Late Show with Stephen Colbert isn't a comedy show anymore. It's a confession booth for the morally self-satisfied. The audience isn't there for laughs. They're there to see their own egos reflected back in high definition. As one ex-user, HFGF fan, put it, Colbert's stage is a mirror, not a spotlight, and what we see isn't funny, it's sanctimonious. His monologues feel like TED Talks for people who think tweeting is activism. Every punchline is a pat on the back for the right kind of thinking, delivered with a smirk that says, "We're the good guys." The vibe's gone from clever to cloistered, a nightly therapy session for viewers who need reassurance they're more enlightened than their flyover country cousins. Colbert's smugness is so thick you could spread it on artisanal toast. Every monologue drips with it, like he's sipping overpriced Chardonnay while reciting White House talking points with jazz hands. The text calls him a walking LinkedIn post, and it's spot on. His delivery screams, "I'm smarter than you, and you're welcome for it." Drop him in a humility tank overnight, and he'd still emerge smirking, convinced the water sent him a thank you note. Ex-users like Usha Kapahona mock his designer cologne of self-righteousness loud and suffocating. It's not comedy, it's a lecture from a guy who thinks he's the professor and you're the freshman failing his class. A recent episode lit the fuse for this week's meltdown. When a CNN guest claimed journalistic objectivity, Colbert's audience booed like they'd been personally insulted. The text you provided captures the moment. Colbert, caught off guard, fumbled to defend the guest, his panic practically audible. X lit up with users like Liberal Laugh praising the audience for calling out CNN's farce, while others, like Mazemore, saw it as proof Colbert's show is a bubble where dissent gets the boot. The boos weren't just about CNN, they were a referendum on Colbert's transformation into a cheerleader for a single narrative, and social media is eating it up like popcorn. Enter Joe Rogan, podcasting from a studio so dimly lit it could double as a lair for summoning ancient spirits. The guy's deadlifting small cars and eating elk, yet somehow he's the voice of reason in this mess. In 2022, on the Joe Rogan Experience, nor 1897 with Jake Shields, he slammed Colbert's vaccine dance as mass psychosis, a clip still circulating on X.
But it is so smart. He said Colbert came up and made his name playing a loving portrayal of a sort of useful idiot, a sort of dum-dum on the right who meant well but was, a real idiot. And now he's playing a useful idiot in a very loving portrayal of the left, a real dum-dum who means well but doesn't know anything, only he doesn't realize it.
Rogan's unfiltered curiosity, grilling scientists, comedians, even conspiracy nuts, makes Colbert's polished monologues look like a corporate PowerPoint. Ex-users like a Joe Rogan clips praise his barbershop of ideas, where no topic's off limits. Meanwhile, Colbert's stage feels like a gated community, and Rogan's the neighbor throwing a backyard BBQ where everyone's invited, even the weirdos. Megyn Kelly, fresh from battling MAGA loyalists and progressive outrage mobs, swings into this fight with a scalpel. On her podcast, The Megyn Kelly Show, e.g. episode with Link Lauren, October 2024, she called Colbert's show Democrat Karaoke, accusing him of trading satire for sycophancy. The text you provided echoes her, saying she sees his interviews as less probing than White House press briefings. Kelly's not afraid to offend both sides, and her takedown of Colbert lands like a precision missile. Ex-users like Artem Kelly fan amplify her, calling his show a virtue signal circus. Love her or hate her, she's exposing Colbert's lack of spine, and it stings because it's true. Flashback to April 2021, Colbert turned vaccine promotion into a Broadway-style musical number, complete with dancers dressed as syringes. It was less satire, more fever dream, as if Rent and a Pfizer ad had a baby on shrooms. Rogan ripped it apart on his podcast, calling it cringe and propaganda, a sentiment echoed on X by users like Mazemore, who posted side-by-side clips of Colbert's 2020 Big Pharma skepticism versus his 2021 vaccine cheerleading. The hypocrisy stinks, and it's a perfect example of Colbert bowing to power instead of mocking it. Rogan's out here debating mRNA data with doctors. Colbert's got glitter and nasal swabs. Guess who looks dumber? Another defining moment, June 2021, when Jon Stewart appeared on The Late Show and floated the COVID lab leak theory. The text you provided describes Colbert's panic, interrupting, stammering, desperate to shut down the bit. You can see it in his eyes, a man terrified of veering off the approved narrative. Ex-users like R. Scott Bertram call it a masterclass in comedic cowardice, with Colbert hamstringing Stewart's bit to avoid ruffling feathers. Stewart, a comedy legend, was trying to provoke thought. Colbert was trying to provoke applause. It's a microcosm of his fall, once a risk-taker, now a gatekeeper. Rogan's podcast is a chaotic, glorious mess, a barbershop where Nobel Prize winners share space with UFC brawlers and conspiracy theorists. He's grilled Bernie Sanders on socialism, Ben Shapiro on culture wars, and Neil deGrasse Tyson on cosmology, all in the same breath. No scripts, no safety nets, just raw curiosity. The text calls it a barbershop of ideas, and ex-users like Rogan Nation agree, praising his willingness to embrace dissent. Compare that to Colbert, whose idea of a bold interview is asking Dr. Fauci if he prefers cats or dogs, followed by thunderous applause before the answer lands. Rogan's table is a battlefield, Colbert's is a tea party. Megyn Kelly doesn't just throw punches, she lands them with surgical precision. On her podcast, she's called Colbert a human Twitter, all virtue signals and no substance, a line straight from the text you provided. She's unafraid to offend, whether it's MAGA diehards or woke warriors, and her critique of Colbert cuts deep. His show's not journalism, it's a pep rally for Democrats. Posts from a Kelly Truth amplify her, noting she's exposed more hypocrisy in one episode than Colbert has in a decade. Kelly's clarity is a blade. Colbert's glittery fluff doesn't stand a chance. Colbert doesn't even need jokes anymore. Toss out a half-baked line about Orange Man bad, and his audience erupts like he just split the atom. The text calls it Pavlovian, and it's dead on. His studio's a lab where clapping is conditioned, not earned. Ex-users like Yo Liberal Laugh mock his audience as wind-up toys, cheering for MSNBC headlines disguised as comedy. You could swap in squirrels with a bag of almonds, and the effect would be the same. It's not laughter, it's a reflex, trained by years of Colbert feeding them comfort food for their bodies.
Colbert from the show was this genius parody. Now he's just Stephen Colbert.
Right.
That's who he is.
They destroyed the essence.
Well,
by giving him something.
The best example of it was when Jon Stewart came on, and Jon Stewart was doing that bit about the lab leak theory, and Colbert is jumping in and stepping all over it.
Right.
And I'd like to see some evidence of that. Like, he's like fucking up the bit. Clearly, Stewart, who's a great comic, is in the middle of a bit.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And Colbert's trying to, he's like, you can see the panic in his eyes that this is not going along with the narrative. So he's hamstringing the bit.
Right.
Which is crazy to see.
Yeah, because his whole body is like physically mortified by the idea that he's sending off the wrong signal.
Biases. Satirists are supposed to be equal opportunity flamethrowers, torching hypocrisy on all sides. Colbert's comedy, though, comes with a VIP pass. Anything aimed at the left gets stopped at the gate like it's wearing a suspicious hoodie. The text calls his show TSA approved, and ex-users like Afgfar fan agree, saying his punches are more like gentle HR complaints than roasts. He doesn't challenge power, he cuddles it. Watching him is like being scolded by a barista for not announcing your pronouns fast enough. Performative, safe, and utterly toothless. Colbert's cozying up to the elite is peak cringe. In a recent bit, he and a guest swapped favorite billionaire pics, name-dropping Oprah like it's a personality trait. The text you provided nails it. He's drunk the Kool-Aid at parties with Jennifer Aniston, thinking he's one of the cool kids. Ex-users like Shaka Pahona roasted him for flaunting his elite connections, calling it comedy for the 1%. It's not satire, it's a late-night host begging for an invite to the Met Gala, and it reeks of the privilege he claims to critique. Here's the odd twist. Colbert's a devout Catholic wrestling with his faith while waving pom-poms for progressive dogma. The text highlights this tension. His old Colbert Report character, a satirical conservative, still peeks through like a shadow, but now he's just Stephen, caught between his roots and his Hollywood halo. Ex-users like Catholic Comic note the irony. A man who teaches Sunday school by day, pandering to secular elites by night. It's an identity crisis in plain sight, and it makes his smugness feel like a mask for something deeper. Confusion, maybe even guilt. Rogan's got one thing Colbert lost long ago: guts. He invites dissenters to his table, leftists, right-wingers, scientists, weirdos, and lets them slug it out. The text calls it courage, and X posts from Rogan clips. Agree, praising his willingness to risk messy, unscripted moments. Colbert's table, it's a curated safe space where guests nod in unison, terrified of a real thought causing whiplash. Rogan's chasing uncomfortable truths. Colbert's chasing applause, serving political comfort food to an audience that's already full. Colbert's monologues are written by people who majored in political science and minored in improv, but forgot what funny feels like. The text compares his jokes to a toddler belly flopping onto a soggy trampoline, and it's generous. Every line feels like a recycled tweet or a reheated CNN headline, designed to comfort, not challenge. Ex-users like Comedy Critic call his writers worn out, churning out scripts that prioritize ideology over wit. The result? A nightly sermon wrapped in smugness, served with a wink that says, "You're welcome for my wisdom." Once Colbert was a rebel with a mic, making power sweat with every quip. Now he's the hall monitor with a punchline, cheering for the institutions he used to mock. The text calls it poetic but tragic, and ex-users like on Satire Saves agree, lamenting how he thinks he's edgy while parroting the safest takes in the room. His transformation is a masterclass in selling out, swapping danger for applause, rebellion for a seat at the elite table. The ghost of his old self is screaming, but he's too busy basking in the claps to hear it. In the end, Rogan and Kelly are armed with mics and no fear. Rogan digging for truth in his cave-lit studio. Kelly slicing through fluff like a surgeon. Colbert, he's clinging to his studio band, curated scripts, and a moral compass that spins with the DNC's latest memo. The text calls him a Huffington Post blog with a laugh track, and it's perfect. He's loud, not bold, serving smugness to an audience trained to clap on cue. Rogan's table is a battlefield of ideas. Kelly's a war room of clarity. Colbert's stage, it's a mirror for the overeducated and under-challenged, reflecting a legacy that's cracking under the weight of its own hypocrisy. The satire's dead, and this roast is its funeral.